Welcome to this Innova Systems webinar, which is going to be an introduction to SolidWorks Enterprise PDM. I'm going to start with a little presentation to go through what Enterprise is for and what we're going to be doing in this webinar. So Enterprise is there to assist us as we move from one design to a new improved design. In this case, we're adding an emergency stop and some other bits and pieces. Along the way, we're going to create a new drawing, a new version, and a new BOM. And everything is going to be controlled using this workflow. I'll explain what workflows are and how Enterprise uses them in a bit more detail later. So first of all, what comes with Enterprise? Well, first off, you get a license of Microsoft SQL to run on the server. It has a number of floating licenses in the same way that the SNL works. It works very closely with your existing CAD system, SolidWorks, and anything else you might have. It works on all your computer systems with the same caveat as SolidWorks that 2013 is not going to be XP compatible. It also comes with eDrawings Professional for all the licenses you install. We've got flexible workflow with no limits. I'm going to show you some other workflows later just to show you how far you can go. And also you've got multi-site replication if you need to, including around the world. So, as with all PDM systems, Enterprise is designed to assist your process. And what happens is we often use the analogy of a leaky pipe. And the idea is to stop the leak as early as possible in the process in order to save you as much time and money as you can. And these are just a couple of leaks that Enterprise can help you fix. Enterprise is supposed to be the safe here, sitting in the middle of your overall SolidWorks environment. Just a little image to show what else we do. Right, that said, let's head into the demo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into SolidWorks. I'm going to start a new file as if I was a designer. I'm going to pull in an EPDM template. So these are centrally managed. I'm going to put it in, save it into my vault. And as it loads the template, it's also going to load a data card. So it's creating a new part number, and it's going to create all the rest of the metadata and hold all the rest of the metadata for a file in this data card. So I'm just going to give that a name, and then we'll move on into the card. The cards you see are all customizable, so don't feel limited by what I show you. So we're just going to start creating some geometry. For those of you who have seen the standard SolidWorks demo, hopefully this will start to look relatively familiar soon. And we're just going to extrude that. There we go, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to check it into my vault. This will create a version of the file on the server for everybody else to see. And I'm going to add a comment in just to show what I've done. And hopefully spell that correctly. And then that's now checked in as a version of the server. I'm now going to continue making some edits. So we'll save that. Put a version on the server which is for the fillets. And then finally, I'm going to put a slot in the top as well. And we'll save that and check that in too. Now, because I've saved and checked that in each time I made a change, what I can do is I can go backwards and forwards and have a look at it from the beginning. So when the file was first created without any geometry, and then have a look at it each step as I go through. Now you can see this has got all sorts of uses in being able to see how something was built either by yourself or by somebody else. And if you need to take a colleague's work and carry on with it, then obviously it's much easier to understand what they were trying to do as they built through it. And you'll see the phrases that I used are referenced here, so you can see why it is important to always put those comments in. So I'm just going to close that file down now. And what we're going to do is we're going to jump into the other way you can get hold of the enterprise interface. So we've looked at it inside SolidWorks, but it also lives inside Windows Explorer. And it exists in a very simple position for you to be able to get hold of everything and use it. So what happens if you decide that this part should exist in a project? Well, we'll right click and we'll say we want a new project. So we've got some template creation methods for new entities. We're going to say that this is, let's say it's a filling machine, and we're going to say it's spare parts only, and it's for the customer SolidWorks. This project data card that we're seeing here, this is customizable as well. In fact, if you're going to have static data or standard data each time, you don't even need to have it at all. So Enterprise will go off and it will create me a set of folders, and it's going to pick the next project number out of the list for me without me having any input into it. It's going to create the subfolders within that, and if necessary create any files which are project specific as well, and it can do all of that all at once. So I'm just going to go and find a blank project, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start copying a whole load of data in here. So I've got a folder full of random data which has come from a third party, maybe a customer or a supplier, and we're just going to take all of that and we're going to copy it, and then we're going to paste it. So exactly the same way you would do from Windows folder to Windows folder is exactly the same technique as you do from Windows folder to Enterprise folder. So we'll just let that copy across, and then it's adding the information into the database so that it's searchable. So we've then got all of our files here. And if we have a look at the data cards here, we can see we can have different data cards for pictures, for DWGs, for the SolidWorks parts which we've already seen, for PDFs, and for text files. We can also preview them. So to preview the text file, we can then have a preview of the AutoCAD image, we can have a preview of the picture, and we can have a preview of the SolidWorks image. So we can get previews of all of these up as well. And there's a PDF too. Now comes to checking some of this stuff in. So if I take this Word document and check this in, so as you can see most of the commands are on the right click, we pick up the Excel file at the same time. And the reason it's picking this up is Enterprise tries to recognize explicit reference links. So this Word document has an explicit reference link to the Excel file because the Excel file is embedded within it. So it doesn't just recognize reference links within SolidWorks files or even just within 3D CAD files, but also within any file type where there's an explicit reference. Sometimes those explicit references don't exist already, but we want to create them. So for example, if I want to take this picture and say it is a reference of my baseball, maybe my baseball in use, then I can create a link between them. I copy the picture, and then assuming that the baseball file is checked out, which it is at the moment, I can then paste it as a reference. And we can see here it's saying this is the reference link it's going to build between the baseball and the picture. And we want to add a reference, and then we have a question of whether we want to show it in the bill of materials. So for example, if it's a manual, you might be attaching a Word document to a SolidWorks assembly, in which case you would want that to be on the bill of materials because every time you make one you want to put the manual with it. But in this case with the picture, I'm not going to have it shown in the bill of materials. So that's now been attached, and we can check it in. And we can see in the check-in box we've now got that reference that's been built, so they work as a pair. So I'll check that file in, and then I'm just going to select everything else and check it in. Now in the table that pops up, we can see we've got one warning. If we scroll down and find out what that one warning is, we can say that Enterprise is saying that a file is not found. So even though I haven't even opened the drawing, and I don't even know what files I'm supposed to be receiving, Enterprise is already telling me that a file is missing, so that I can go and fix that, go back to the person who sent me the information and request the file, and even request it by name. So this comes back to the fixing the leaky pipe as early as possible. I've only just got the data and I'm already finding errors with it, but a way that's very easy for me to do. Right, we're now going to have a look at reusing some data. So I'm going to jump into the search file. The quick search card is something that's been put together specifically for this company. And what I'm going to do is look for files that have the name control. And in my table, I'll get a whole load of results. Enterprise is a little bit like Google, and it often returns more than you wanted, but it should always return the result you're looking for. You may just have to narrow down your results a little bit. So the first thing I'm going to do is have a look at this control box drawing. And we can see here that it's saying that it's released. So this is a completed drawing, but this is what we want to base our new model control box off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that and I'm going to do a copy tree. The copy tree command, a little bit like pack and go, but has some additional features. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to transform it. Add prefix, add suffix, and replace will all be very familiar to you, but we also have rename with serial number. Now there's a whole load of files here which actually I'm not interested in copying. I'm really just interested in the SolidWorks documents. But what we can do is we can actually rename them with a serial number. So when I created my first part, we saw it got a serial number. We can reuse those serial numbers to assign numbers to the rest of my files here. So the drawings pick up drawing numbers and the assemblies pick up assembly numbers. It can be quite confusing that the drawings and assemblies aren't called the same thing even though they're the same file. So we can choose name drawing after their models. So now we have, for example, here we've got our part and our drawing are the same number. It makes it a little bit easier to understand. I don't want that one. And then we're also going to check in the files with the comment move from inquiry. So because I'm moving it from my inquiry folder to my project folder, I've got to give it a whole load of numbers, but I want to leave the inquiry folder as it was in case I want to use that to sell it to other people. We'll let that copy. Essentially that's taking a copy of every file, renaming it and saving it into the new folder. Much the same as I said, like pack and go. So if I now jump back to my files, and I can jump into Project 15 Design Data, and we can see the copied project. So here are all the files. Now, a lot of people will find it quite difficult to understand what's going on with all of the numbers. Might be find it much easier with descriptions. So we can go and find the description column, and we can move that to the far left, and then we can use that as a selection column. So if I now sort by name, we can now find the drawing and the assembly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the assembly, and I'm going to check everything out at this point for simplicity. So we have our control box. What we're going to do is I'm going to insert a bill of materials, and then we're going to save and check this in. And all I want to keep checked out at this point is just the top level drawing. So if I make that formatted again, again we're trying to make the history informational. And then we're going to open up the assembly. Now I know that I want to add some additional features to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to search for the files that I'm interested in. So we're going to look for a file which has got two terms in it, switch and panning, and it's come up and given us a file where the description is panic switch. This is because it searches for each term, so the space divides my terms up individually and in any order. So we can see panic switch there is where I've got that from. Now I've found it, I can just drag it out of the search straight into my model, and I'm going to use the long neck configuration. So very quickly I can get information from my search into my model, which saves me having to move things backwards and forwards a lot. Now I'm interested in the missing power connector on the back here. I'm going to select the feature so that it finds my part, and then I can go through and I can find that this feature is called 3-pin power receptacle. Now if you are well behaved enough to actually name your features, you can take the name of the feature and put it into my search box and find information based on it where the description is 3-pin power receptacle, because I know that that's the name of the feature and the part match. So if you are tidy enough in order to actually rename all your features, you can then reuse their names in order to grab hold of the stuff you're interested in. So what we'll do is we'll add this part on. There we go, and very quickly I can get that into my model and into position. I'm now just going to save that. There we go. Now I just want to add the additional features that came in with my emergency stop. Now I've made changes to the door. The door itself, if we have a look here, is not currently checked out to me, so any changes there won't be remembered. But I also want to find out where else this door is used. So I can click up here on where used, and it'll actually tell me where it's used. So the part is used in a sub-assembly, which is then used in the top-level assembly, which is then used in the top-level assembly drawing. At this point, I'm only interested in the drawing for the actual door itself. But I'm going to check both of those out, have a look. Does that look in about the right position? Yep, that looks fine. So what we're going to do is we're just going to save these. Just to update the changes to both the door and the door drawing. Now it was also used in assembly. I can actually select the assembly from the tree over here, right click, and then we can open it. So the assembly was changed, that's lovely. I can now check that out. I could potentially go and grab the drawing for this at the same time. So we'll check those out. We'll give it a rebuild and then we'll save it. So what I'm doing is I'm just going through and updating all the components this is used in all at once. And we can see in the tree, the items that have got the green marks on are the ones which I've updated. Yep, so these parts are listed as needing to be checked back in again. So I'll save that and close it, and we'll go back to the drawing. So I've now made my changes. We can see I've got my panic switch or my emergency stop, and we can see the power receptacle. Those two have both been added onto the end of my bill of materials. So I'll save it and check it back in. And at this point we don't want anything checked out. So I've now finished with this. I've added my additional components. What I want is for my boss to now go off and approve this work. So I'm going to tell him that it needs to be approved. So submit it for approval. The comments, as we've seen previously, are sort of recorded for all time. The notification comments, on the other hand, are just going to appear in the email to the boss, so he can see what you want. You can also be a little bit more informal because it's not remembered. And we then need to pick the manager off the list and say we want him to be the person who's informed, and click OK to that. That's now sent off and is pending approval. We're going to close that down because as the engineer I'm finished with all of this work, and what we're going to do is we're going to now log off as the designer and I'm going to log on as the manager, so you can see this from the other side of the process. Would help if I was in the right box. Now as soon as I log in, you can see this notifications appearing down the bottom here. This is because the notification that was sent by the designer has popped up in the manager's email box. This can also come in through your Outlook email if you'd rather. So I'll click on this and it's going to give me a list of links which will take me to the file, so you can see the state change comment I've done and the notification comment. If I click on the history, as a manager I can see when the work was done. So I can see that it was copied today, and then the BOM was added, additional components were added, and then it was transitioned on to pending approval. I could click, open the file, I can view it, I could open the folder to go straight there, but what I'm going to do is I want to use some of the additional search functionality to show you how else you can get there. So if we go back into EPDM, and I go back to the search again, we can see these search favorites. These are essentially one-click searches where everything's been pre-filled in for me. So one click and it does the whole search. So I found my file via the search favorite. I can click on it, have a look at the preview. See, that's at the moment it's listed for reference only. I can come in, because it's eDrawings Professional, I could measure something up to find out whether it's been put in the right place. This might be a reason for me to reject it, because the designer's clearly put it in a random location and hasn't put it anywhere sensible. I can also come across and have a look at the bill of materials for the part and scroll down. Now this will show me what's in there at the moment, but I might want to compare this to what was there to ensure that the right components have been added as per my previous requests. So I'm going to compare the current version with an old version. So if I go back to before the additional components were added and hit OK, and we can see the green lines are showing what's been added and the red lines are showing what's been deleted. So at the moment you can see the panic switch has been added and the power receptacle has been added, and clearly there's a different version of this Excel document that's been linked to it. So very quickly we can see the changes that have been done there as the manager, which does make my life a lot easier. So it looks like he's added the right things. I'm happy with the position of it here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and approve the document. For me now, because I'm not in SolidWorks, I can right click on the file, still inside the search tool, and choose change state and approve. So I'll click that, and this is going to do a number of things. So first of all, we put in our comments, if I can spell them correctly, and if necessary I can send a message back to the designer. You never know, it might happen. And then I'm going to click OK. Now what's popped up is a block that's on at the moment, because we're insisting on double authentication for releases. So not only have I got to log in as manager, but I have to put my password in as the manager in order to actually approve something. It's up to you whether double authentication happens on each transition, but it's just an additional security measure that can be used. Now what we've popped up here is when we release a drawing, we want the system to create a PDF of it. This box doesn't have to appear, it can go away and do it silently, but we want this to pop up just so we can see what other file types are available as well as PDFs. So I'm going to select a PDF there and say OK. Now in the background, SolidWorks will open up and do that PDF conversion for us, and then save the PDF into the predetermined location. As I said, that can be silent, doesn't have to pop up the box asking for the exact file type first as well. So now I've approved everything, what I'm going to do is jump into the admin tool just to show you what's going on in the background. There we go, there's SolidWorks just popping up now. So this is the admin tool. It's a little bit more complex than the workgroup tool, and there's a couple of things I want to show you first off. First of all, let's have a look at the cards so you can see how those are customized. So this is the existing SolidWorks part card. You can drag stuff around, we can change what things are called. So for example, I decide number isn't a suitable thing to call the part, I can change that and just call that part ID, and as soon as I save it, that's what everybody will see on their screen. So it's very easy to update. It's just a question of putting the boxes down and linking them to the correct variables. We also want to have a look at the workflows. So in here you can see our workflows. This is the workflow that's used for the demo. So we started in work in progress for all new files, and then we came down to pending approval, and finally we released our drawing. To add new states and new sections of the workflow, it's a question of dropping down the state and giving it a name. And then we just need to say who can do what in this state. I'm going to say that engineers, they're allowed to read file contents, as are managers, but nobody else can actually even see the file at all. Then we need a way of getting there, so we're going to say a transition between the start and the end, and we give that a name. And then we say who can do this, and I'm just going to say only managers are allowed to do that. Now in order to send that out so everybody can use this new section of workflow, as soon as I've hit save, it's all out there. That's absolutely fine, no problems at all. So you can see it's very quick and easy to add in the additional sections of workflow. I often say it takes me longer to make these look nice and neat than it does for me to actually create them in the first place. To give you some examples of some slightly more complicated workflows, if we go into this second vault I've got on my machine, we've got here a very long workflow. It starts all the way at the top and goes all the way down to the bottom. So you can see you can add in a lot more complexity. And also we've got a very wide workflow here just as a comparison. And this workflow just shows you that you can have multiple different people authorizing a single transition. So in this case we have to get 6 different types of approval. So as you can see, you can start nice and simple and add complexity as you go along, which makes it very flexible and very easy to attune to what you need to achieve. So just a quick list of some future webinars. We've got one on the 12th of July about SolidWorks electrical routing, one on the 19th of July on how to use the master model technique, and one on the 26th, which is about scan to 3D. As always, if you want to get in touch about anything you've seen in this webinar, then please feel free to give us a ring or to send me an email on the address listed there. Thank you very much for watching.